Awesome. And let's see if I can read this. It disappeared. What I was going to just read just disappeared on me. All right. Well, welcome. Welcome. You are the early comers. I'm 5 minutes early because I want to run through a few things, and I'll probably have to tell you this a couple times, but as you can see, I've got something going on in my eye here. It started yesterday morning, and very painful. Both eyes, they're itchy, and I don't think it's an allergy. I don't know what it is, but it's a little bit better today. Jill made me a 2-mile tea. Ducks and Clucks is here. And I put that over my eye. I've been outside working all day, and anyway, it looks bad. It looks like maybe I've been smoking a little weed, smoking some doobies down there by the bridge. But no, that's not what I've been doing. I've been actually working. So let's talk. We're going to have a fencing class May 4th. This is going to be at the farm. And that's a 9 o'clock start. And bring a lunch. Maybe even bring a dish to pass. We'll cook some stuff, though. That's one thing about this farm. We got lots of food. We got lots of food. So we'll cook something good. We're going to do some pretty neat things. We'll do a corner post. We'll do an H-post, and we'll stretch some woven wire. Woven wire happens to be my favorite fence, and I use it in conjunction with electric wire and barbed wire. And we've been doing this long enough where we've kind of settled on what seems to be the best bang for the buck, and will contain just about any species that we've tried so far. So we have pigs, chickens, cows, what else? I have some sheep now, actually, which I haven't had in a long time. Okay, so that's going to be our fencing class, May 4th, all right? That's a one-dayer. Pastured poultry will be the next one. That's going to be on June 22nd, and that's a 9 o'clock start time, too. That's kind of a full day, and my goal for you, when you leave here, you will be on your phone calling the hatchery, ordering up chicks to be delivered to you. Because if you were to start some chicks the very next week, get baby chicks in the mail, you would definitely finish them in fine shape. There's still plenty of summer left, June 22nd. But we had to wait till June 22nd, so we would have some adult birds here that need to be processed, because we're going to start out on the field. We're going to show you the whole brooding process the way we do it. Then we're going to go to the chicken tractor field. I'm going to move some chicken tractors. We're going to talk about feed. We're going to talk about water systems. I'm going to show you the water systems up close and personal, share all my secrets with you. And then we'll come back to the maintenance shop. We'll finish the assembly on a chicken tractor, Generation 3. You can take all the pictures you want, and then we move over to the butcher shop, and we'll actually butcher, depending on how many people we have, but we want everybody to get a good, feel for butchering. We're not going to pressure anybody on any of the steps if you're not comfortable with it, but you can watch it, or you don't have to watch it if you want. I say this all the time. My wife has never killed a chicken here, and we've been doing this a long time. All right, so that's pastured poultry. Then we're going to do cut up. We're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about regulation. We're going to talk about business models that work, all right, for pastured poultry. All right, then we want to talk Homestead hog harvest. That's going to be November 1st. These seats fill up fast, so you're going to want to get your deposit in. All of these go to bakersgreenacres.com and look under the Anyone Can Farm tab, and you'll see all the stuff that we have there for you. Okay, Homestead Hog Harvest. For new people here, we start with live hogs. There will be 1 hog per 6 participants. So we want 3 people on each half. That's what seems to have worked the best. and we've been doing this a lot of years now. I think over 10 years we've been instructing this. We've been doing it for a lot longer than that. And it's a fun class. It's very instructive. Again, you could on your way home to be able to butcher your hog. The only thing that you won't do here is you won't do the shoot. I do that, and the stick. I do that too. And I'll show you what that is. And if you need instruction in that, we can help you with that. Like we can put a target down on the ground that's about the size of a hog's head, and we can show you exactly where you want to place that bullet, and it's a pretty good size place to put that. And if you hit anywhere in there, you're going to be safe. We just use a 22 rifle, actually use a 22 Magnum rifle. But when we have the hog split in half, we'll be able to show you exactly where the knife goes for the stick. It's nice if you can see where it's supposed to go before you start fishing around in there with a knife. But if you know where it's supposed to go, it's a real quick shot. It is not a cut this way, it is a cut this way. It's straight down. And that's done because we don't want to mess up any of the meat that's in this area. Here's my secretary has come up alongside of me. And so I'm going to ask you, please, to questions, please, in all caps. And I'm going to come back to you on that a couple times during this broadcast, because we know that... Oh, it's quacks and clucks. I'm sorry. I've been calling you ducks and clucks all this time. I'm sorry. That's Scott Burton. Where's Scott Burton live again?
I don't remember, but folks could check out his
YouTube channel. Scott's got he's got
Partlow,
Virginia. Okay, yeah. And we're friends on Facebook, and they put up pictures of what they're doing. And looks good, man. Looks good. I got to tell you, of the people that come to this, we get a lot of doers, all right? And that's the whole idea. If you're involved in this process, it's actually fun to come and sit at somebody else's kitchen table and talk about these processes that were just, farm processes, But they're fun things to do, and they're productive, and they're also, you make a pretty good gain doing it, All right, so let me tell you about who we are. We got out of the Air Force in 2004 after 20 glorious years. And about the last 7 or so, we had a small place off the installation that, I had some chickens, and we actually raised some pigs and had a couple of beef cows and stuff like that. And that's actually where I learned how to process pigs, because of an unfortunate thing that happened to the local processor that burnt to the ground. I had to learn, it was out of necessity that I did learn how to process pigs. And then when we got out, we moved here to Michigan, and we bought this 80-acre farm and went into commercial farming. But I got to tell you, getting out of the military and jumping right into commercial farming, if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, it seems easy, right? But there's a lot to it. And we did that for approximately 14 years, and decided that we would be probably better off going back to where we started. That was the homestead model. The whole time we're in the commercial model, it's raising as much of something as you possibly can. So you hit the ground running in the morning, you don't quit until you can't stand up anymore. And it's tough on your family. My oldest kids were like my employees, and there was quite a bit of suffrage that went on, and and my wife too. All of us kind of suffered, but we were all kind of in it together, and we decided to go back to the homestead model because we can slow down and participate in more different processes, and we don't have the huge fuel bill. We don't have the huge feed bill. We're not engaging with so many customers like we did before, lots and lots of them. So it's a better place to be. And for me, I recommend that you don't quit your day job. I recommend you keep your day job and use your homestead as a supplement, as if you were going to go get a part-time job after you got home. You know, use it as your supplement, and raise all your own food. And then as you gain steam over the years, you master more and more processes, get better at what you're doing. At some point, maybe you'll want to make the transition over to commercial farming. At that point, but I don't know, because we're going through this and we're saying, why would you do that if you made your farmstead your full-time job and then you got a part-time job to supply your cash needs? Maybe that would be a better way to go. So we're exploring that. I'm retired, so retired from the military, so you know I get my military pension, and that's actually a pretty good gig. And I'm actually looking at picking up some extra work here soon. You know. So let's see. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to show you that we still have about 5 or 4 puppies left. All right, so if anybody needs a Great Pyrenees puppy, these are the best dogs, and they are what they call guardian dogs. So if you're going to do the homestead thing and you're going to have um, poultry out on the field, or poultry period, I mean, you're going to need to keep the bad guys away. And believe me, predation can really, really be tough on you after a while. And I just got to tell you, it's too bad. But any of these puppies that we don't sell, we just have to knock them in the head with a hammer and throw them in a hole. So I hope they sell. I really do. It's too bad. Yeah. Too bad for you, huh? Even as cute as you are. No, I'm just kidding. That's my marketing technique to get all the, oh, he's not gonna. No, I'm not gonna. All right, so the purpose of this is to knock off a lot of questioning that I get. Since we started doing this, actually, my phone has quieted down during the day. I still get questions about other things, but farming people, we've gotten a pretty good flow of people that are coming to this 1 hour on Wednesday night, and then we do 1 hour on Saturday morning on Facebook. This is the YouTube one. So if you're on the YouTube one, you probably know that we have playlists on the Baker's Green Acres YouTube channel, and you can go through there and you can find different things that you might want to get smart about, you know, in the farmsteading world. And I made videos for a long time, and it was sort of just a thing. I'd pull my phone out of my pocket and just do it. I don't know why. I just big show and tell guy, so I did. But now it's kind of taken on a life of its own. So we're going to go to the next level, I guess, and be getting smart about passing on information to folks more and more and more. Okay, so what's that? Oh yeah, there's another program that we do. It's called the Homesteaders Guild, and this is a program that happens 4 times per year to coincide with the seasons. 12 weeks in the spring, 12 weeks in the summer, 12 weeks in the fall, and 12 weeks in the winter. We're just finishing up our winter class. It'll finish up next week. At the end of April, we're going to be starting up our spring class. And this is, our last session was more theory and the approach to small farms and homesteading. Spring is going to be hands-on. It's going to be, I'm going to be showing exactly what I do in the processes that I'm going to be working hard at this coming spring. Spring is a lot different than summer. Summer, then we're doing maintenance, and then fall we go into harvest season, I guess. So each season has different things. It's 12 weeks. What it entails is Thursday, Friday of the first week, I put out a video, and it has to do with things that I think that you need to be exposed to as a homesteader. Let's say that you don't have hay ground on your property. I'm still going to expose you to where hay comes from, how it's made, how it's stored, what it takes, you know. It's nice to know that. You may see a bale of hay and say, well, that represents, you know, $6 or something like that. Do you have any idea what goes into that, making that? It's a good idea to know. So we go through that. And there's many other things that we're going through. There's actually 11 subjects, and then the 12th is a review. We try to tie things together as we go and kind of give you that aha experience. My goal is for you to be a success at this. I've seen way too many people get stars in their eyes about homesteading and bumping the table.
Sorry about that.
And only to get discouraged when their first pig gets out and roots up the neighboring golf course, and then you're held accountable for it. And you say, oh, the heck with this. Nobody told me about that. Well, this is the idea. We want to get you kind of primed up for, you want to keep some pigs? This is what you need to do. I mean, farmers know these things. You want to keep chickens? This is what you need to do. You know, you want to know all the facets of keeping pastured poultry. Well, this is what this is about. We want to show you these things so that you can do it effectively. Another thing that we stress is, let's just talk raising chickens. If you're going to raise chickens for meat, I mean for eggs, let's say, everybody can dig that. If at the end of the year you've spent $1,000 on 20 dozen eggs, then you might get discouraged and say, this is for the birds. You know, I can get them from the store cheaper. It's true. I don't think we're ever going to close the gap with industrial agriculture monetarily. I don't think we'll ever do that. But you can custom build an egg that will be nutrient dense, right? So you're growing produce that you're going to eat, right? And people who have gotten into this realize that the food that you eat is very, very important, all right? So that's one of the reasons why you may want to do this, all right? But we don't want people to get discouraged, so we want to give you some forethought as to what can happen, things like that. All right, we talked a lot about safety, and you know, coming out of the military, we're real big on, hey, don't do that because you're going to get hurt, you know. But in the civilian world, people are kind of on their own, you know, like, hey, don't step on that. That will go bang when you step on that. So we want to kind of help you out with that and say, these are the good things to do. This, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, or I've done this and I wouldn't do it for these reasons, all right? Okay. Safety briefing for today. Many times in my videos, I have talked to you about heat lamps. And I hate heat lamps. Heat lamps are right up there with hog chow. I hate hog chow too. That really stinky stuff that carries so many terrible things and brings it right onto your farm. Heat lamps, a lot of people, and I was just to a friend's house, and we didn't say anything because we knew that they had seen many of our videos where I talk bad about heat lamps. But they had heat lamps going, and they burned their barn down. And it was a really nice barn, and it had a lot of good stuff in it. And it's a tremendous setback to the homesteader to burn down a really nice barn. Very expensive barn with very expensive equipment in it and a lot of keepsakes and memories and all that stuff. Terrible thing. Heat lamps are no good. If it comes to the point where you have to maintain heat on an animal, try to look for an alternative source. Try to stay away from open flame in barns. Never a good thing. We use about the only thing that we need heat on here are puppies if they're born in the wintertime. But we'll bring the female dog in. We'll bring her in the house, and that alleviates that. And then this time of year, when we have baby chicks come, they come in the mail. They're about this big, and they have to be kept under heat. They have to be at 105 degrees for starters. But we have a brood house that is separate from the barn. So if it burned, it would be out there all by itself burning. I don't use heat lamps in there because they're really ineffective. And a long power cord and a heat lamp is a bad thing. So I actually have a propane bottle that is mounted right to that house. And then there's a line that comes in and it powers up a hover. And that is a heater that is designed for chicks. And a lot of people have worked on that for a lot of years and figured out that it's safe for chicks. Got a thermostat on it and everything. And mine has never failed on me. Okay, so heat lamps. Get them out of your barns. Get them out of your life. You don't need them, right? They're not even designed very well. They've got that ceramic stuff on them that, and then the light itself, that light that heats up red, is very thin on this end where it screws in. So there's a lot of, when it gets bounced back and forth, there's a lot of force against the screw-in part. And when that breaks off, then the element is exposed. And the element heats up, burns, and those wires drop into the bedding. Poof, you get a fire, instant fire. So very bad. We have another friend in the UP that actually burnt down his chicken coop last year. So the list keeps on coming, and I used them for years. I used them until somebody said something to me about it, and so I don't use them anymore. There's definitely alternatives to it. The puppies, another thing we do with them is there are heat pads that you can plug in. They're hard plastic about that thick, but you have to put them on something that is solid, because if they break like that, you can have problems with that too. So you have to put them on a solid surface to do that. Okay, that's it.
Actually, you had a question about keeping chicks warm. So
Okay.
the propane, that's a propane hover heater, right?
Yes.
So that would be an off-grid alternative.
Oh, yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. If you're off grid, they're about.
non-electric.
I think I got these ones from Stromberg's. They're a poultry supply house, and I think they're $180 a piece, something like that. Very well built. They have a thermostat on them. They're real nice. I bought them 10 years ago. I've got 3 of them. I only use one. The other ones I have in the butcher shop, and they're kind of mounted up against the ceiling. I actually hooked one in, and when we do classes here, if it's cold, they're radiant heaters, so I could turn one on just as personnel heaters, to keep people warm. But generally, if you have 5 or 10 people in there, it warms the place up. So, okay, we use propane hover heaters for chicks, much more effective and much faster.
Safer.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the only thing that I would caution you there is if you get brand new chicks, let's say you get my house, I can put 500 in it. I designed it so I can put 500 in there, but I need 2 heaters for that. But if I'm going to put 300 in there, I can get away with 1 heater, and they do really fine. You put the heater, I put it 16 inches off the floor. The floor in there is just, it's dirt, so, I know I'm losing a lot thermally, but I usually put down a lot of wood chips, or when it's real cold out, we'll put down straw first and then wood chips over it. And the idea being that I can move that house when the next load's got to go in there. So that's why there's no floor in there. I designed it that way. But you know when it's warm enough in there, when the chicks are kind of spread out. You want to see about a half an inch gap in between these chicks. If it's too hot, then they'll be in a ring around the outside of the area where the radiance hits the ground. You want it just right so they're all under there and they're just kind of laying back sunbathing. But then what you need to do is you need to check your propane source. You need to check it. You need to check it because let's say you check it at sundown and you go in the house and it's cold out like it is now and that thing's running hard and it runs out. Let's say that happens. I have a 100-pounder on my 100-pound bottle on my chick brooder. It's strapped right to it. It stays right on that house. Let's say that goes down during the night and runs out. You could come out in the morning and see a pile of chicks. They pile on each other to stay warm, and the ones underneath get trapped and they die. So when it's cold out, you got to be real careful. And the only reason why I started chicks early was so I could, again, as a commercial farmer, raise as many chickens as I possibly could in the summer. So if I started earlier and went late, you know, I'm pushing the envelope. I'm pushing the cold coming in the fall, and I'm pushing the cold in the spring coming out of winter. But it was worth it to me because I needed to get those numbers up. You know, I made X amount per chicken that went out the door, and you know, I was trying to be rich, right? So, but then you take the risk of having huge losses, okay? So there's really no reason to do that if you're homesteading. I think, you know, if you raise 50 chickens so you can have like one a week, or you go 50, 60, whatever, you can start that in June, late in June, and you can be done. Let's say you start June 1st, you can be taking them off the field August 1st. That's 8 weeks, right? So you can be done before it even gets cold out. So you would use very little propane out there. Okay, is there another question?
Yep. Get into our questions here. Paul from he's got the Greenhorn Homesteaders channel.
Oh yeah,
If y'all
I got to
wanna
check that out, Paul. Greensteaders Homestead channel.
Greenhorn Homesteaders.
Greenhorn Homesteaders channel. Okay, I will check that out. I will. I've been trying to spend more time checking on what other homesteaders are doing. I did it one day when I had a headache, and I was thrilled with all the stuff that people are doing. It was really cool. Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Paul.
So, Paul's question.
Gotcha.
What ration did you feed the hogs, and how old were they when they got to butcher size?
Oh. Okay. Deep story. My hogs are Mangalitsa and Mangalitsa crosses. I've raised these pigs, and then before I had these, I was doing like a Yorkshire cross, just farm pigs. These pigs will eat anything. I mean, I've fed them pine boughs before. Anything you can get, you can feed to them, and they will do well on it. Right now, I feed them hay, straw, believe it or not. I give them straw for bedding, but they eat it. And then I have a bread contract, a disposal contract with a local company, and so I feed them a lot of bread. In the summertime, we have a butchering service where we're butchering poultry for other people. Once a week, people can bring their chickens to us and we butcher them. So we generate a lot of heads, a lot of feet, and a lot of buttholes. And it's all fresh chicken. and we give it to them. So that's their protein source. Um, the hay is actually a pretty good protein source. We're not going after maximum growth, you know, not doing that. The Mangalitsa pig needs about a year to develop all of the muscle groups, and if they go over a year, they're big. You know, you don't worry about it. Um, a lot of times, if you're commercially growing them, like I had several accounts, and the chefs want them this big. You know, they want the pigs this big. So you have to supply them with that, or you're not holding up your end of it. When you're homesteading, like I have friends that have bought Mangalitsas from me, and they want to continue to buy Mangalitsa from me because the meat is it's bar none the best hog meat that you can get in the United States. I haven't had every kind of hog meat. I haven't had any Parma ham. Have we? No, I don't think we have. And that's Spanish. What's the name of those pigs?
Iberico.
Iberico. I haven't had that, and that's supposed to be really good. But I think that's more of an environmental thing. I think they're raising their pigs under, you know, vast acorn areas, you know, oak trees. But the Mangalitsa pig is so outstanding, I would not want to be without it. And we cook with the lard, and we cook with, we make a lot of things out of it. You know, we make a lot of specialty meat products, prosciutto and pancetta and the bacons and all that stuff. I do not want to be without that if I can help it. It's really a bummer if you go someplace and you order bacon, and it's just like you leave 3 pieces of it on your plate because it's just like eating the cardboard, you know. This stuff's really good. But you were asking me about the ration. The only thing I would say, Paul, do not bring any hog chow on your farm, because hog chow has in it what they call raw protein. Raw protein is the stuff that comes out of the big processing facilities in the Midwest. From hog processing facilities, it's all stuff that they can't put in a Spam can, and so they dry it, they pulverize it, and then they put it in hog chow. Now, in the United States, we don't feed cows to cows because you get mad cow disease. But they haven't had a problem with hog chow going to pigs because all it does is make pigs on the farm sick because of all the disease suppression in the pigs that are coming out of CAFOs that go to the big processing facilities. And the disease suppression methods are feeding the animals, you know, antibiotic, subtherapeutic antibiotic doses. And so that all is built up in that hog chow. When you feed your animals hog chow, you will smell pigs. My pigs, their manure, you can pick it up the same as you would pick up a horse manure or a cow manure. It looks somewhat the same, and when you put it to your face, it is not that putrid dog manure smell or pig manure smell. It is not that way if you're feeding them properly. Now, you can listen to me, or you can do what other people have done and go to the grain company or the co-op or the feed store, and they'll have a guy there that's an expert, and he'll say, oh no, if you don't feed them hog chow, they won't grow. Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense, right? Don't believe that. You can feed them pumpkins, you can feed them apples. Actually, you can feed them just about anything that has caloric value. What I feed probably the most of here is forage, right? So I have fields that are dedicated to just swine, my Mangalitsas. And I grow forage in those fields, and it's really productive. The pigs will go through the field and they will dig it all up, right? That's what they do. Sometimes people put rings in their nose to keep them from digging. Don't do that. They want to dig, let them dig. Let them dig the pig fields up. They'll take every blade of grass off there, and they will turn every blade of grass into pork, right? You know, high quality meat and high quality fat. And then when they're done with that field, wow, look at they've dug it all up for you. Now all you have to do is seed it and drag something over it. Oh, won't it be kind of bumpy? Yeah, but it's a pig field. It's not a hay field, right? You cannot graze. Well, I'm not going to say you cannot because I hear people saying that they do it, but I don't know how because pigs, they won't go onto a hay field and say, hey, look at all this hay we can eat and start eating hay. They will dig almost immediately because they like to dig. That's what their disc on their nose is for. And they're eating roots. You know, they like to eat that stuff. Okay, so that's what I feed the most of. And there's a good video out there that we demonstrate the forage field. We've grown radishes on it or whatever we've decided to grow. I grow a lot of different things. And you should too, where you're at. You get stuff down there that will grow that wouldn't grow up here. So do some experimenting what will grow. Hogs will eat anything and everything that you can grow. I'm going to be growing this year. One of my favorite things to do is try new things. Is I got my hands on some sun hemp. All right. Per the farm bill, we can grow hemp now legally. It was outlawed for many years in this country. This is not the cannabis. I think it's cannabis something else. It's not the cannabis sativa though that that you roll dubs out of. It's different. It's it doesn't have that effect. But I'm growing that stuff, and the photos that I've seen, it's like a solid wall of this stuff, and very supple leaves on it, great big stalks on it like this at the bottom. So I'm kind of visualizing when it's, let's say when it's 5 feet high, I can turn the pigs in there, and they'll eat the stuff that's down low, right? And then when it's 8 feet tall and they've taken everything from down low, I'll start cutting some of them off and laying them over, I think. I've never done it. But I've heard reports that the pigs will eat that. It's supposed to be kind of sweet, and it's supposed to be even human beings like to eat it. So we'll see. I usually try whatever I'm going to feed them. I've tried eating pine boughs. I don't like them. But there's so many things, Paul. If you see the guys trimming the power lines, right? And you go out to the boss man and say, hey, you need a place to dump that, the wood chips. They would love to come on your place and dump them at your house. And then you should put them right in with your pigs, because all those little bark chips, there's bark on there that's green, and they will just love that stuff. And then you're adding a lot of nutrient to your pig pens. Gotta be careful not to go too wild with that, but like my pig field is actually 300 feet long by 100 wide, and it's divided up into threes. So I've got 100 by 100, 100 by 100, 100 by 100. And then once this field has been taken down to nothing, I can move them over to the next field. And then I can plant this field. You'd be surprised how many plantings you can get per summer. It's very surprising. And then some stuff does well in the early spring, some stuff does well in the late summer, or even fall. I mean, I plant rye around here real late, and I still get good growth on it to go into winter with. And then in the spring, I'll show you. I have a field here that I keep my calves on. I planted that into rye, and when it was up a foot, I turned them onto it just before winter, and then it snowed over it. They ate it down pretty close to the ground. But here it is spring, and we can see that green out there. So all the roots are started, a lot of the sugars are in the soil. It's going to take off. All right.
Ready for
I
another
think
one?
I answered that. I think I did.
I think you beat that
Yeah.
one. Okay, question, hay updates. What do we need to do now for getting hay fields going? This guy is from 10 hours south.
To get hay fields going now?
All right. To encourage hay. And 10 hours south, that puts
10
them
hours south.
a long ways down.
Yeah. All right, if it's not an established hayfield and you've never run hay equipment over it, then what you probably want to do before you get too much growth right now, you might have to pull a roller over it. Okay, and Ducks and Quacks and Ducks, Ducks and Clucks says get your soil tested too. You can do that. I wouldn't recommend digging it up though at this point. What I think I would do, I mean, if I could look at it and you could tell me what species are on there, we do offer consulting services too. But you might want to see what's on it, all right? And if you can cut it, if you can get something to go over it, even the first time, if you can just take a bush hog over it, and then maybe get some seed out there, and if you can graze it, you can really help yourself out there. Because let's say you're going to graze it with cattle, you can put some seed out there, especially right now. Graze them over it, let them take the first cut off of it, the first graze, and then have them push a bunch of seed down in, and then when we get the spring rains, you'll get that flush come in, and you'll establish some new growth in there. Maybe roll it if you need to, because you're going to have to go over it with some sort of mower, and we usually use a sickle bar mower, and that's a mower that has sickles on it that go like this, and you only cut it once. It's not like a lawnmower that will chop it up and mulch it. You don't want to do that because you can't bale at. Or they have this thing called a disc bine, and sometimes a disc bine will actually hit the blade twice. I mean the blade of grass twice, but that's okay. It's only cut twice, so it's all right. So that's what you got to do to get started. If it's a hay field, I'm assuming somebody's already cut hay off of it. And in that case, you probably just want to start supplementing it. And I make a lot of compost. One of my most productive fields is a field that we put probably about 200 yards of compost that we made here on there, because it was known as the Sand Hill to the farmers around here. It's the highest point on the farm, and it was extremely sandy. In the summertime, it looked like an old baseball field, and if you went out there and you walked too hard, you would just split the sod apart, and it was just beach sand under there, right? So now it's some of the most productive hay field that I have on the farm.
He's looking at a brand new place.
Brand new place.
He says, brand new place, nothing.
Okay.
He knows what a disc is, but questions what's rolling.
Rolling is when you're going to take hay equipment across a field, like a hay bine or a sickle bar mower is what they call it. Sometimes they call it a windrower. Sometimes they call it a hay bine. Sometimes they call it a swather. Or if you are a Hooterite, they call it a swatter. It's a hay cutting equipment that if your ground has a lot of peaks and rocks and stuff like that, you're not going to have a hay bine for long. You're going to tear it all up. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll have a heavy roller that you pull behind a big tractor, and that roller will smush everything down, right? But, you know, if that field has been cut before, then somebody has probably done that. My fields here had been worked like that before I got here. And then we worked up a couple of fields, and we had to roll them down so that they would be acceptable. There's another piece of equipment, it's called a cullipacker, and it is a heavy roller, and you pull it behind a piece of equipment like a tractor or a Jeep or something, a four-wheeler. Some of them are pretty big. It's one of those things that'd probably be worth getting with some of your farmer neighbors and say, you know, could I buy you a cup of coffee? Come over and look at this field and tell me what to do here. It might be worth it. It really might be worth it. And then you have to consider haying equipment. You're going to have a hay bine. You're going to have a rake, a hay rake to rake it into a row. You're going to need a baler to bale it up so you can put it someplace in, like in a barn, to keep it out of the rain. So all that hay equipment costs money. And if you spend a little bit of money on it, like I did when I first got here, you're going to have old stuff that's outdated and breaks. And you're going to spend more time fixing than you're going to spend time cutting hay. But it was like a process that I had to go through because I looked at it and I said, well, this looks like pretty good to me. I got a good deal on it. And then and then I swung to the other extreme. I went to the dealership here and I said, help. And they were ready to help me. And they sold me some very expensive equipment that I would have been paying for the rest of my life. And so I finally settled on a kind of a middle of the road, you know, some fairly new stuff that was built in mid 60s. You know, I was born in 1960, so it's fairly new stuff. 60s to 70s, you can still fix it relatively easy, and it's still fairly cheap. I spent $2,000 on my baler, $2,000 on my hay bine, and $500 on my rake, which is, it's not cheap. That's not cheap. But I have about 60 acres. And some people would say that's not enough acreage to justify owning hay equipment. But around here, the dairy farmers are so busy that they are probably not going to want to come and cut my hay for me, even if I'm really nice to them. They're not going to. As a matter of fact, I know they won't. The times that I've had to ask for help, I'm really putting them out, and I hate to do that because they're extremely busy, you know, especially in the summer when they're cutting their own hay and fixing their own equipment. So for me, it was better to have my own stuff. And now I've done it for so many years with that equipment. It's paid for sure. It doesn't owe me anything. And I've put together a system that could actually be part of this farm, you know, if I ever decided to sell this farm, you know, it's part of it, right? And, you know, would enable the next person to just pick right up where I left off, right? Okay, so I hope that helps. Maybe you need to pay for an hour of consulting on that, and we could do a phone consult, you know, and you could kind of take pictures of the ground that you have. That would help. We also do the kind of consult where we come, and you can get just me, or you can get me and Jill, and that's, you know, that's far more expensive. But for somebody that wants to get a farmstead going quick and can afford it, it's probably the best money you'll spend, because one or two mistakes and you'll have paid, you know, if it's a good mistake or a bad mistake, however you want to put it. All right, next question, please.
Yeah. Scott wondered,
Ducks and clucks.
when making hot compost, can you cover it? And if so, what's the pros and cons?
Hot compost. When you're making hot compost as opposed to cold compost?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he means. Well,
hot compost is when you get it up to like the 160, and it's,
okay.
you know, in the cold compost, I remember Schaff talked about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, here's what I do. You got to have a manure source. The best manure for the quickest compost is going to be the highest in nitrogen. All right, so chicken's the best, or turkey might be the best. But I would be careful about going to, like here in the southern part of the state, they have these big facilities that will sell you truckloads, and they'll even bring it to you. But they're feeding all genetically modified feeds. So there's going to be a real high concentration of glyphosate in there, because that's why they genetically modify corn is so they can spray it with a herbicide. That's why they do it. So I would be real careful with that. You know, I'm not really here to bash them. To me, it doesn't make sense. If you're trying to grow stuff and then you get a manure source that's just has a high concentration of glyphosate in it. Okay, so I wouldn't do that. You can if you want. I wouldn't do that. So you get that manure source, you start making a pile, and you've got to have a certain amount of weight on that pile in order to make it work. Like if you took, like one cow turd and then you put some chips on top of it and you wait for it to compost, not going to happen. You got to have a certain amount of weight there, and then the bacteria will take over. And then when you turn that, whether you turn it by hand with a fork or you have a front end loader, you can just pick it up and then dump it. You're going to aerate that, and it's going to make the bacteria that's in there take right off and start chomping down on all the organic material in there. So they say that, like if you're going to commercially make compost and sell it, I think that Department of Ag wants you to get it up to 150 degrees, something like that, to kill all the pathogens in there. Because if you don't kill the pathogens, they'll kill you. That's the fear tactic with manure. I don't agree at all. You know, how many Indians died of pathogens from the bison out on the Great Plains? I don't believe that. Once you spread it out, the sun goes to work on it. It's just when the concentrations are so high that the pathogens are just off the chart, out of balance for the amount of organic material and the amount of bacteria, then maybe you could have some problems. But I don't think you're going to see that on your place. What I do is I put all that together, and then I'm constantly adding to it. Anything that I have or can find that's carbon-based, like if I see a bunch of old hay laying someplace, and I'll ask the individuals, can I move that for you? Oh, yeah. Sometimes farmers aren't able to get their hay in, and then as soon as it gets rained on a bunch of times, then it's no good, and they don't even want to put it in their barns because the feed value is shot. I will take stuff like that and put it in my compost pile. Wood chips, like I was talking to Paul before. If you can get wood chips, take all you can get. It's great organic material. Wood chips, the roots of those trees goes really, really deep. And there's nutrients that are deep in the soil, minerals that are deep in the soil that are just don't exist anymore in our topsoil, especially on fields that have been farmed for many, 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 many years. There's very little in that topsoil. Very little of anything in that topsoil. That's why they have to use the petrochemical fertilizers that are doing such a good job on our rivers and lakes and streams. So, no, I don't cover it, and I don't think you'd want to cover it unless you're extremely dry down there. They say, and I've heard people say this, the rain will leach all the good stuff out of it. Well, the area where you're making your compost, eventually you're going to want to move off of that area. You're going to have a lot of that nutrient there. I suppose if you lived like in the Philippines where it rains every single day, yeah, you might get a pile that's so saturated that it just won't work. But in North America, I don't know any place where it rains that much.
And the other issue, it might leach, but if it gets too hot, you can kill the bacteria going in it.
Yeah, that's another
And
thing what Joe was saying.
Could cause that.
Yeah, when you're making compost, then when people say to you, "Oh, what do you farm?" you can say, "I farm bacteria. I got a livestock operation going." "Oh, what do you raise?" "Bacteria." Because you do. That's what your main animal in that pile is, bacteria. You've got bacteria going in there, and you need to protect them. So if that pile gets too hot, Like, let's say you have a cover over it, like a black cover over it. If it gets too hot, you're going to kill off that bacteria. And the bacteria is your friend, right? You've got 3 pounds of bacteria from here to the other end. That's what does all the work for you. You know, you may think that you're digesting your food. You're not. All that bacteria that's in you is digesting your food. That's another reason why you don't want any glyphosate going in here, because that bacteria is plant life, and you're going to kill a lot of that plant life off by ingesting glyphosate. So you want to stay away from that stuff as best you can. I live in an area where it's used as if it's harmless, and it's far from harmless. Many places in the world it is banned, but we haven't got around to doing that here in the United States. I'm sure they will at some point. There's a lot of lawsuits going on right now, and even local guys that are using it, they're subject to lawsuits because they should know better. The MSDSs that they keep right in their shops say that it's harmful, and they do it anyway because they do. Was that the answer to the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Huh. JD has another question for you.
JD.
You're going to like this one. What tool do you have on you at all times?
I have 2. 3, actually. You want to see them? I have a old man knife, right? This one is a case folding knife. Does not have a lock on it, right? So it's made in the United States of America. And this blade is one of those blades that I can get sharp enough actually to shave. All right? I can actually shave the back of my arm with this, and that's what guys do. The other one is this. It's a Leatherman Surge. Right, and I've had a lot of these multi-tools throughout my career in the military and my career in farming. And in my opinion, the Leatherman Surge or the Wave. The Surge is a little bit bigger, and it fits my paw a little bit bigger than the Wave does. Wave is kind of small. I think it's better for girls. But it's got a bunch of stuff on it. You know, I can cut, I can cut wire with it, and I'm repairing fences a lot. Or I can, it's got a knife on it. It's got a little saw blade. It's got scissors. It's got a screwdriver. I use it a lot. I mean, I don't go out of the house without it. And the other thing is this. It's a light. And I keep this on me all the time. Like, as I get older, I think I can't see as good. And if I can put light to it right away, I can see what's going on. So I have that on me all the time. Another thing that I have in my pocket is a lighter. I actually carry a lighter all the time. I don't smoke. I just like to carry a lighter. No. Our junk bread contract, I open a lot of bread. And, the bags have to be... Oh, never mind. I'll leave that alone.
Today, our son Sam, who's home on leave from the Air Force, was getting ready to go up and see his recruiter. So he's got his whole BDUs on and everything. And I noticed on his belt is his carrying case for his Leatherman.
Yeah.
He said, oh, yeah, that was one of the first things I put on as soon as I could carry a knife because I use it all the time.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yep. Carry a Leatherman, always will. Okay, I was going to say something else. I forgot. Okay.
Oh.
Another question?
Yep, I was typing.
Oh, yes. Could everybody please like and share this? And I would like it if everybody would leave a comment real quick. We just want to know demographics, where you all are. Just state. We don't need town or anything like that. Just state in the United States or country. So if you're Alabama, USA, Alabama, USA. Okay. Please. Illinois.
Holstered. Yes, the knives are always holstered.
Florida. What's holstered?
Elena's in Illinois. And that was said holstered?
Is what holstered?
Your tool of choice,
Oh,
I assume.
no, I didn't put it back in the holster. It's sitting here. I have a holster on my belt, though. It is custom made, and I suppose you'd like to see that. I made it myself. My Leatherman goes in there, and my light goes there. There it is. On me all the time. Weddings, funerals, doesn't matter.
All right.
This is fun, isn't it?
Thomas wanted to know, how can someone know if they are looking at a pure Mangalitsa and not a cross? And he's wondering because he wants to get into some, and sometimes people say they're pure
Yeah.
and they're fibbing.
Okay.
So he's
I'm gonna
just
help
wondering
you with
about
this.
how to know that you're getting what you're paying for.
All right. Some people will tell you that they're going to give you a piece of paper, a certificate, and it's like their word that it's pure. Right? But I got to ask you, can you tell that I'm pure Irish? Can you tell? All right, it doesn't say on my ID card whether I am. But I would tell you that I am. But you don't know. I could be Lithuanian. I could be Argentinian. You know, you can't really know. And this whole discussion is because these pigs were brought into the United States, and all of a sudden, somebody started a program where they were issuing paper to people that were buying their pigs, and they said these ones are real Mangalitsas, not them fake Mangalitsas over there. Well, look, there's 126 breeds of pigs. Breeds. There's only one species, like the species Homo sapien would be us, right? But there's a bunch of different breeds. We got Lithuanians, we got Mexicans, we got Africans, we got Puerto Ricans. They're real. They are breeds. We would call them ethnicities, but they're really breeds, right? Well, in the pig world, there's really only one species, and that's porcine. But then there's a bunch of different breeds, and the breeds are actually man-made. Right? The original pig that, let's say, for metaphorical purposes, or you can take it literally if you want, that would have been on Noah's Ark would have been a pig that was taken out of the wild, and they only really exist in the whole world in the Pacific Rim. And they are known as Eurasians, Eurasian wild boars, right? And over the years, they've been called a lot of things. They've been called Russian boars, right? We're not going to call them Russian boars anymore, okay? Let me just tell you that. We're not going to do that anymore. So people do what they call selective breeding. So let's say you get two Russian boars, you breed them together, and one of them comes out of the 6 babies that are born, and it's a little bit lighter than the rest. Hey, I like that. So then you breed that one to another, and then out of that you get 2 that come out a little lighter. And it's like, hey, this is cool. So you keep selecting that trait that you want and breeding it together, and you keep getting that trait more and more. So the Mangalitsa breed is a breed, a couple different pigs that they used, and one of them was the wild boar. And I can't recall what the other couple breeds are right off the
A Mishan type pig?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, the original stock?
Yeah.
No, it was the wild boars, and then they had a really super fatty pig from China. So
Mishan?
Probably a precursor to the
whatever.
Mishan, something
Okay.
like that. Yep.
Yeah.
I read the book.
And, okay, Joe read the book. And it was in a book. It's on the internet, too. And then when they breed them together, they get a pig that's furry. and they'll say, well, let's keep that one. Let's keep that one. And so this selective breeding process has produced the swallow belly Mangalitsa, the blonde Mangalitsa. There's some reds in the United States now. I don't know if there's any blacks, but I have some that are not swallow belly and they're all black. But if I call them black and I put it on the internet, I'll get a ton of flack because I don't have a piece of paper saying that they're, like a pedigree, right? Well, I don't have a pedigree. She doesn't have a pedigree. My dogs don't have pedigrees. But you look at them and you can tell a Mangalitsa from, let's say, a large black. And the differences are what they call phenotypical. That means it's seeable, it's knowable characteristics. You look at them and you say, that one's got long hair. That one's got short hair. That one has a long snout. That one has a short snout. And then, of course, when you take them apart and you have them laid in half on a table, if you have a Yorkshire, let's say, laying on the table, which are bred for being extremely lean, because remember, lean meat is better for you, right? And you have a Mangalitsa laying on the table, you'll have back fat on it like that, and you'll have kidney fat or leaf fat on the inside that'll just be like a lot. And then on the Yorkshire, you won't really have that much. That animal is being bred and fed for lean meat, where the Mangalitsa is bred and fed for fat meat, right? And a lot of intermuscular fat as well. And I've heard people say all kinds of wild things about, genealogy and all this stuff, and usually they're talking in circles and doesn't really make a lot of sense to the people that actually do this. But so how do you know? How do you know? It's not like knowing your phone number, right? You know your phone number. Or if you have a cell phone, maybe you don't. But you're going to look at that pig and you're going to judge, has that pig got the phenotypical characteristics of a Mangalitsa? Does it have long hair? Does it have, the short pumpkin seed, high back on it? Does it have the smaller hams in the back? If you get pictures of Mangalitsas, you look at them and you say, okay, that's a Mangalitsa. And then when you go to look at them, if they say, well, they're pure and I can prove it because I got this piece of paper that the guy charged me an extra $1,000 for, it's not necessarily what you're going to be getting. And if you have options, though, so let's say you look at the pigs, they look like Mangalitsas to you. People are saying they're Mangalitsas. And you look at them and you say, yeah, it's okay, that's acceptable. You bring them home and you breed them. You go and you find another one, you breed them. When you get young ones that have the look that you want, that look to you like a Mangalitsa, and you've taken some of these animals apart, and in fact, they do have the heavy back fat and the intermuscular fat and the general proportions of a Mangalitsa, you're selective breeding, and you will breed for that. I mixed in, at one point, a large black into my herd. Right? He was a large black red wattle cross. And I did it for a reason. I wanted to, all right, because I wasn't sure if I was going to stay with this breed of pig. I wanted to see what else was out there. And so I bred a Mangalitsa with a large black / red wattle. The Mangalitsa characteristics are very dominant, all right? So it was really easy for me to breed that out and breed the Mangalitsa back in. I also mixed, I've done a lot of different things. I've mixed blondes and swallow bellies together, and you get what we just named it a brindle. So they're kind of brownish, and they're good pigs. They're hardy pigs. Anymore, we don't really care too much about it. We've got the breeding stock that we're going to keep, and we keep the best looking babies to feed out for ourselves, and the rest of them just get sold, and we just say, well, you know, we don't charge a whole lot for them, and a lot of people charge a whole lot for Mangalitsa breeding stock. I don't think we charge that much. No, I don't think we do. And you know, I don't give any guarantees, but you look at the pig. Does that look like a Mangalitsa to you? And then you can talk to the owner, and if the owners try to pull a fast one on you, you'll know. I mean, so it's kind of a deep question. Of course, if you talk to somebody who is peddling the pedigrees, they will say, "Oh no, the only way to know if it's a pure Mangalitsa or a pedigree Mangalitsa is this piece of paper." And I'm the only one that can give you that piece of paper. That's the antithesis of what I'm saying. It's the same in dog breeding. We raised that little puppy that I showed you at the beginning of the show tonight is a Great Pyrenees. The mother, we bought it from somebody that said, I have Great Pyrenees puppies. We went and looked at them. They're Great Pyrenees. The mother and father are. We bought a puppy. Our other one, we got the male we got from another group of people that were breeding Great Pyrenees. Neither one of them had papers, right? It was just we went and met them. They were nice people. They had a good-looking farmstead. I shook hands with them. I looked at their product and I said, "Yep, that's a Great Pyrenees," because I had Great Pyrenees before, so I knew. So I hope that clears it up for you. It's probably clear as mud. I don't think a piece of paper means squat, right? I could have a piece of paper that says that I'm Dutch, right? But I don't think anybody would believe that. Next question, please.
Michael
Michael.
Finneran wanted to know,
Mike Finneran.
after tilling or disking a field, how do you even out the ground? They want to grow a variety of stuff, grass, grain, veggies,
Well,
but instead of leaving the big...
yeah, usually to even it out, well, a disc will do that. And a disc is actually a plow. It is a form of plow, and it has these round steel things, and they're mounted so that when you are pulling that along, they're actually acting as a circular plow, and you can go one direction and turn everything down. Generally what you do, Mike, is you're going to want to get a mold board plow and turn everything down. You go through and turn everything down. And then you follow that same contour with your disc. And that will totally turn it down. You know, you want just dirt showing on the top, and you want all the vegetation under. And that's what you're doing there, is you're green manuring, because all of that thatch and stuff that you turn under will become food for your bacteria, and then you're going to plant on top of that. And the first time it might not work out so good, because you may have the dirt on top is, you know, right at that borderline of topsoil, and when you start getting into the sand, so then you have to be pretty judicious what you're going to plant on there the first time. And you can't go wrong with rye, in my opinion. And then, Mike, you got cattle, so graze the cattle over that rye, and then do it again. Do the whole process again.
But he needs to get veggies in some places and grain, you know.
Oh, if you're gonna
Right.
if you're gonna do a vegetable field, and you've got
And grass fields.
all right, so you need a grazing field.
Right. He's wondering how to get it smooth after you've disked it for those crops that need a smoother.
Yeah, what you're going to run into there is if you've turned everything down, and then you want to smooth it out, you're probably going to want to smooth it out with a roller or a color packer, like I was saying before, because if you wind up turning that stuff up again, it's pretty hard to get it back down. So do the plowing with a moldboard plow, and then follow along that in the same contour with the disc. totally get everything under, and then plant it and go over it with a roller or a color packer. And you may have to go through that process a couple of times. Depends on how, how rank the field is. But I have fields here that were, nothing was growing on them except weeds. It was really bad. And we planted, a guy showed me how to do it. I had the stuff here when I bought it, but I didn't know how to use it. And the guy showed me how to do it. I turned it all down. I planted rye on top of it, and you got the most beautiful stand of rye. Bright, bright green. Went into the winter. The next summer it was still there. We ran pigs over it. They ate everything. I did it again. Now it's some of the better soil on my property is there. I did a video like last summer. I tried to grow Sudan grass on it. It didn't work because I didn't plant it right. So you could watch that video if you want. See what happened with me.
Ready for the next one?
Yes, next question, please.
Do we have brand inspection on pigs? How do they mark pigs moving back and forth? The guy that asked was from Arizona, and he said they do have brand inspections there. I was just curious.
Brand?
Yeah.
No, we don't have brand inspection. If you're going to move them interstate and they're going to slaughter, like if they're going from Michigan to Did you say New Mexico?
Arizona.
Arizona, and they're going to slaughter, then they don't need no inspection at all. If they're going onto another farm and they're breeding stock, some states require a blood test. And some states require a health certificate. And what that means, when my vet does it, he comes, looks at them, he judges them to be healthy, puts a tag in their ear, annotates that, and sends it to the gaining state's Department of Agriculture. But all states are different. Some of them don't care. I think that state probably doesn't care because they don't have a huge swine lobby there. Here, they're kind of anal about it because they only want their pigs, in industrial. But I don't think you're ever going to get pulled over along the side of the road saying, "Let me see your health certificate there, boy." I don't think that's going to happen. But if you want pigs, like Mangalitsa pigs, to come from Arizona up here to get pigs wouldn't be really the thing to do unless you wanted to come here and take the hog harvest class and take some home under your arm, then it would maybe make sense. But there are growers all over the United States, and you can do what you want, but I don't think anybody is doing this commercially right now that's able to overcome the extreme amount of time that it takes to raise this particular pig, where a Yorkshire, you just walk the feed to them in the hog chow and you're going to have a pig in 6.5 months. Mangalitsa takes longer. You can do the same thing with hog chow, but they're not going to make the gains that the commercial pigs do. So it's kind of tough to compete, but there is absolutely no competition between this pig and the commercial pigs. I mean, you can barely eat the stuff I think that you get from the store, but this pig is phenomenal. I mean, you get a collar steak on your plate, and you're going to look at that and say, "That's beef, right?" No, that's pork. It is that red. But it's a combination of breed and then environmental conditions that it's brought up in, really. It's got to get the sun. The sun is the sun puts the hemoglobin into their muscles, and that's what turns the meat nice and red. And the fat is outstanding too. It's like ivory color, and we don't give them any corn because it turns it a little bit more yellow, so we stay away from corn with them. But we're pretty sensitive to the the glyphosate that's in feed corn around. So, and I have done it, but I don't do it anymore. Next question, please.
Yeah. Scott wanted to know, once you make biochar and you're not using it, do you have to keep it moist?
No, no. There's some excellent books out there on biochar, Scott. Guy by the name of Albert Bates. I don't know if he makes it, but he wrote a good book on it. Albert Bates. That's one of the better books out there. Anything that I pass on to you about biochar, like the theory of it, it's just what I've read in books. All I can tell you that is hands-on is I've made it. I have a biochar maker, and I can make like 250 pounds per load. And then I've inoculated it, and I have fed it to pigs, and I've fed it to chickens, and I've fed it to cows. I fed it to the bacterial crop. But what biochar amounts to is it's like empty apartment buildings for all of your bacterial friends. So when you feed it to your chickens, they're going to inoculate it when it goes through them. And when it comes out the other end, their manure is going to be kind of dark, but it's going to be laden with their biology, their bacteria, and their protozoa as well. And then it's going to become part of the biology in the chicken field, or the pig field, or your pasture where you graze your cattle. So keeping it dry, all you're going to do is you're going to keep those apartments empty. So I don't know if that's a good idea. I think that I would inoculate it with something that your bacteria wouldn't mind cohabitating with. Like, let's say you inoculated it with Clorox, let's say. Well, I don't think your bacteria is going to like that. Your bacteria is not going to want to move into that apartment. But if you inoculated it, let's say, with honey or molasses and water, oh, your bacteria is going to like that. Hey, honey, let's move into this one. You know, so you're going to have bacteria from the next county over saying, let's go over to Scott's house. See, they tell us bacteria is such a terrible thing, you know, so we act antibacterial everything. No, it's an essential part of life. It didn't arrive here from Venus accidentally. There's a lot of misnomers in the biological world as far as how it applies to farming and soils and all that stuff.
He also wanted to know then, how much biochar do you feed chickens and pigs at one time?
Well, that's one of the neat things about biochar. When you made your first load of biochar, you didn't call me and say, how much of this should I sample to see if it tastes good? You ate some of it. And then you didn't eat anymore, you know. So you can see the videos that I make. I get a fresh load of biochar. I mean, it's still hot. And I take a shovel full of it, and I walk over the pigs, and I throw it in. And all you can hear is crunch, crunch, crunch. And people are like, why are those pigs eating charcoal? Why would they eat charcoal? I don't know. I can throw pennies in there, and they don't eat them. I can throw a lot of stuff in there that they won't eat. But charcoal, the animals eat it. And they like it. Like I've told you before, sometime do this. Take your biochar that you've made, put it in a nice bowl, you know, like a crystal bowl on the table, and then have friends over for coffee. And don't say anything. Just leave it sit there. And you will see people pick that stuff up, smell it, hit it on the table, you know, play with it and stuff. Oh, what's this? Or if you put other things on that table, like, say, fake fruit, people won't touch it. They just, okay, I know what that is. They'll look at it. Or if you put charcoal briquettes, let's say, on the table, nobody would pick one of those up because there's petroleum in that. You know, you sense that. I'm not going to touch that. I mean, I don't need to touch. Why would I want to touch it? But biochar, people are kind of drawn to it. They pick it up, they smell it, they taste it, they eat it, and then you tell them what it is, and they kind of like, oh wow. And for those of you that don't know what biochar is, it's carbon-based material that is created in an oxygen-deprived environment. And there's a device called a retort. There's many different ways of creating these retorts, but you put wood in it, you roast the wood, and what you get is you'll have a 2x4 that will be the same size, only smaller, and it's 99 and 44/100ths carbon, and it has amazing properties. People do a lot of stuff with carbon. They eat it, they put it in their food, they put it in capsules and use it to detox their bodies and stuff. And I highly recommend it. It's a great thing for you to do on your farmstead. We kind of recommend doing anything that you can get an advantage, a legitimate advantage, being fair to the ground, fair to the animals, and fair to your family. Don't go robbing banks, because I said. But it's a legitimate thing to do, and also people feel as though it is an answer to global warming. Now, I don't want to start a debate on global warming here for sure, but I will tell you this, that if wood is left alone, let's say out in the woods, or scrap lumber or whatever, and you just leave it there, it'll degrade, and that carbon is released into the atmosphere. If you put it in a retort and you roast it, and you release all of the distillates that are in the wood, all the saps and everything else, and they're burned off, and then that carbon is interned into the soil, then it's not released into the atmosphere. And the global warming thing is because there's too much carbon in the atmosphere. I don't want to debate that, but it is a way to put that carbon directly into the soil where it will stay for a long time and not be released into the atmosphere. So, Albert Bates, if you read that book, he's a big global warming guy, and he thinks this is the answer to global warming. But a lot of people have the answers to global warming. I think the answer to global warming is Mangalitsa pigs and pastured poultry. Whoa, 8:25. I've been blabbing. I'll take one last question, and then I'm going to have to sign off and get something to eat. Is there one last question?
Well, Paul had asked a question, and he wanted to know about sickle mowers. Are square balers problematical, or a rake problematical? I'm not sure exactly what he was asking, but that was his question.
Yeah. Well, my philosophy on hay equipment is get stuff that is what they would call open sourced material. So I have a 1964 or 65 Heston 1060 swather. And I have taken that thing completely apart. It's sort of like an old washing machine. You can disassemble it and you can put it all back together. It's sort of like my Jeep. You can do the whole thing with like a 9/16 and a 1/2-inch wrench and a pry bar and a screwdriver, I think. There's very few, I would say there's no special tools. And that's how hay equipment was built to be serviceable. Hay equipment that you would get now, let's say you bought brand new stuff, some of it, and there's 3 major colors, or 4, so I won't mention any names, but some of it has software in it, so you have to have a laptop to figure out what's wrong with it. You don't want that. You would want that if you're, got major properties that you are going to be haying. You want stuff that you can fix. So the older open source stuff like Massey Ferguson, some of the old Case stuff, old John Deere stuff, old. Mine is all Heston, and then my rake is a new idea, right? So it's very old. That's very old. It's all ground drive stuff. I have a round baler. Square balers are great, but then you have to handle square bales. With a round baler, I can make 1,000-pound bale. I can pick it up with my 45 horse tractor, put it on a big hay wagon, bring it up to the barn, and then put it in, right? So for me, round bales are the way to go, and I'm feeding cattle with it, so I can just take a round bale out, drop it in a round bale feeder, and then it's secured there for them to eat off of it, and they're good to go for quite a while. I'm not feeding them every day. So I don't have a square baler. I've never had a square baler. You got to have a bunch of people to handle square bales, or unless you have an even more complex piece of equipment to stack them. I had a friend that did that for a long time. So that's my recommendation. What I mean by open sourced is you can get bearings and chains and bolts and nuts and all the hardware for it, cables. You can get all that stuff from an automotive supply like Napa. I love Napa. I do a lot of business with them. Or just like a Tractor Supply or a Farm and Fleet, they have standard plain bearings on the shelf, for agriculture equipment. They still carry that stuff. So that's kind of what you want. If you have to go running back to the dealer all the time, a plain bearing from the dealer that's a couple thousands bigger to fit their equipment, you're going to pay. Occasionally I have to do that, for my tractor, which is a green one. So occasionally I have to go to the dealer and for stuff that goes to that specific tractor, you pay a lot of money for. And you pay a whole lot more if you have to bring it in there and have them fix it. You want to be doing this stuff yourself. So I have become the master of adaptation. I like to adapt stuff to go with the equipment that I have. The quality of the bearings and the chains and all that is just as good. It's just the sizing of it might not be conducive to the newer stuff. So I hope that helps. Again, if you want to do a 1-hour consult, we can do it with a Zoom call, and then we can both see each other. It's really productive. You can get a lot out of the way. We would precede that with a phone call so that I could get you could tell me what you want to talk about, and I say, get a list of these things. So you have it right in front of you. Get pictures of the property, get pictures of this and that, and actually have some of the samples out there so I can actually look at it. Even better than that is if you can have us there, we can pick it up, we can smell it, we can look at it, and we can, it's going to blow your mind, but there's actually a vibration, and only certain people can feel the vibration, and I happen to be one of them. So is my lovely wife. And I'm just pulling your leg. But after a while, you get a feel for things, just like anything. So I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We will see you next week, same time, same channel, or if you'd like to tune in Saturday morning on Facebook. It's Baker's Green Acres Facebook channel. If you would like, go there and send me a friend request or however that works, and we'll be friends.